Hello, I'm Owen Hughes, and in this short video we're going to start by exploring some of the factors which influence the way people experience pain. We're going to do this by imagining that we've got two people in front of us who are taking part in a test which researchers often use when they're looking at the way people experience pain. We'll imagine that these are our two participants. We'll call them Boris and Doris for the purposes of this exercise. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to take part in something called the cold pressor test. What that involves is asking them to put their hand in a bucket of ice or cold water and asking them to see how long they can keep their hand in there. What you need to do is ask yourself which of these two people is going to be able to keep their hand in there. Now, there's a couple of things we need to think about. First of all, there's these two things called pain threshold and pain tolerance. So just to briefly explain what those are, if you imagine that doing this exercise over a period of time, the pain is going to get worse, or at least the sensation is going to increase. The longer you leave your hand in the cold water, the more sensation you're going to get. Now, initially, perhaps if it's a sunny day, that cold water may actually seem quite a pleasant thing to do. But over time, what's going to happen is that the sensation is going to increase, and at some point, you're going to start experiencing that as painful. And that's once it goes over that level, that's what we refer to as the pain threshold. So when a sensation becomes painful, then we say it has passed the pain threshold. So the sensation continues to increase, and then at some point it's going to get to a stage where it's actually unbearable to keep your hand in the water, and at that point we say that the sensation has passed the level of pain tolerance. In other words, something that the person can't put up with any longer, or at least is unwilling to put up with any longer. And that's obviously a slightly higher thing. So when we're talking about our two participants in our study, what we need to think about is, first of all, who's going to have the highest pain threshold, and then the second question is who's going to have the highest pain tolerance. So the simple questions are, who's going to last longest with their hand in the bucket of water, and then the big question. This is something I'm going to encourage you to really think about and ask yourself, well, what are the different factors that are going on in that situation? Is why? Why can one person put up with pain longer than others? Now, obviously in this situation, we've got two people who are quite different in the way they're built. They may have one of them obviously is male, the other one's female. Does that have an impact on their experience of pain? Well, the answer to the question is, in certain situations, yes, it may do. For instance, we know that when women are going through childbirth, their pain threshold and their pain tolerance may change as a result of some of the processes they're going through that. Whereas Boris, it might be that when he's competing, he may find that actually he can put up with even more pain, particularly if there's a good prize at the end of it, whatever. Then, of course, there's the different physiques. Boris is obviously much more muscly than Doris. Now, does that have an impact? Well, who knows? But the fact of the matter is that there are just by looking at these two people, there are actually a whole range of things we could look at which might influence the way that those two people experience pain. Another thing to think about is actually, well, we don't actually know is how much pain experience have they had. I mean, and what was the consequence of that pain when they experienced it? It might be that Doris has experienced lots of pain in her life and has learnt that she can actually deal with it and is very confident that she can manage it. Whereas Boris, for instance, it might be that he's had a very bad experience with pain, and actually his threshold and his tolerance are actually very low as a result of that. So although on first glance you might think, well, obviously it's going to be Boris because he's much bigger and butcher whatever than Doris, actually you can't really make it that assumption, because there are so many other things which are going on. And then, of course, there's the question of actually, well, if these two are out in front, doing this in front of us, is that going to make an impact? Is it, are they going to be trying to impress us? And that brings in the whole idea that actually the context in which someone carries out an experiment of this kind can have a big impact on the outcome. So, does it make any difference then if we put them in separate rooms? Well, it may well do. It may well be that for Boris, certainly when it comes to his tolerance, he's prepared to put up a lot more with a lot more pain than if there's competition involved, or indeed he doesn't want to be seen as weak in comparison with a woman or whatever else it might. Other things might be going on through his head. So it might be that actually, if they're in separate rooms, their pain tolerance may change. It's unlikely their pain threshold will change, because they'll both that's less dependent on the context. So, if we actually think about it, and we look at some of the things that are on screen now, are just a few of the many and very different things that impact on the way we experience pain. And so it's very important that we don't make just a simple assumption that just by the way that someone looks that'll have a massive impact on how they experience pain. Pain is a very personal thing. It's a very subjective thing, and of course, it changes over time. So one of the things we must remember when we're thinking about pain is that it's impossible to tell how much pain someone's in, because we are unable to measure it, and there are a huge amount of different factors which go to make up the ability to experience pain.